Hi everyone. So we are now live. Thank you very much, Maxwell, for joining us in this hangout with the LeWeb community.
My pleasure.
Um, so Maxwell is one of the founders of Wobbleworks. You guys are a toy and robotics company, as far as we can tell. You will be on stage on day one of LeWeb, and you will be showcasing the first 3D printing pen, which is one of your products. But I'll perhaps leave you with a few minutes to introduce yourself and to introduce what you've been doing.
So, I'm Maxwell Bogue, one of the co-founders of Wobbleworks, and Wobbleworks was founded in 2010 as a R&D company specifically aimed at creating, sorry, at creating toys and new innovative products, generally for the toy industry as well as the consumer electronics industry. And in that time, we've made quite a number of concepts, and we've put a lot of items out. But the 3Doodler is obviously the one that has received the most attention as of late. And essentially, we spent the last year working on creating the 3Doodler and bringing it to market. And we chose Kickstarter as the platform to bring it to market. Um, yeah.
Thank you for this introduction. Talking about WobbleWorks, so we believe I mean, your most successful product is the 3D pen, and we'll get to it in a second. But just to get back to WobbleWorks in general, I think you've made some robots. Could you tell us a
Oh,
little more
sure.
about this?
So Peter Dilworth and I are pretty obsessed with robots, and I actually used to work at a company called WowE, making robotic toys, and so we've had a big obsession with legged robots for quite some time. There's some videos out on the web of Trudy and Butch, which are some of our larger robot dinosaurs that we're very proud of, obviously. But we specialize in making robots that are reasonably cost, and we especially have a knack for reducing the complexity in the manufacturing process for some of these items. Um, the Trudy has been an obsession of Peter Dilworth's for quite some time. When he was at MIT at the Leg Lab, he built a life-size Trudosaurus, which is a small baby-style dinosaur, but it is a two-legged self-balancing robot that had like 100 or so motors in it. When he brought it to WowE, when I was working there, we reduced it down to 14. And then when Peter and I were working on it directly, we managed to get it down to a two-motor walking platform, which is quite a difficult challenge, especially since you're trying to reduce costs and whatnot. We have other robots that are actually coming out to the market over the next couple of years, which I can't go into too much detail about, but I can say that they're very interesting, fun robots that are very much geared as a kid's item.
Fantastic. And so you went into 3D pens, and we are going to make the transition to your product, 3Doodler.
Mhm.
So it's a 3D pen that basically prints plastic in 3D and allows you to draw really shapes.
Yeah.
Could you tell us a little more about this?
So the 3Doodler is essentially the extruder head from a 3D printer. Dilworth and I have spent a lot of time 3D printing. Most of our concepts are 3D printed to test out, and we go through iterations using our 3D printers. And one day, Pete was staring at the 3D printer because they're so much fun to watch, and it made a mistake, and he was a little frustrated with it. And he said, "Damn it! I wish I could just pick up the head and fill in that one spot and then put it back. Why can't we do that?" And we're like, "Oh, we can." So the next day we took apart one of our 3D printers and we made the first 3Doodler, which we called the teacup, which worked horribly. It barely worked, but it worked, and it was the seed of the idea. And then we went through 5 iterations of refining the concept and making different products and different styles. And we managed to combine the cooling system and the head and everything, and really get the cost down significantly, which was one of our main goals, because we wanted to create something that was accessible to everyone. You know, current 3D printing is a very expensive technology in terms of average consumers. You know, the MakerBot is $2,000. The UPS are $1,500. So you're looking at least $500 to $2,000 to get a 3D printer, not including the cost of the software required to run a 3D printer and to make those 3D objects. And we really see that as a big barrier. So we found that the 3Doodler was a great item that eliminated those issues and made a nice entry-level system for 3D printing and getting to experience 3D printing for the first time.
Definitely interesting, and of course the knowledge to create 3D shapes is not offered to everyone, so having a pen is definitely interesting. In terms of ink, of course we all know about the model of ink and cartridge. What's your take on this? Will the 3Doodler be, I mean, compatible with everything, or do I need to?
We're very much against the ink cartridge model. We find it frustrating, as everybody else, that you have to go to 6 stores and, you know, pay a ridiculous sum of money. So the 3Doodler itself is compatible with PLA or ABS standard 3mm filament, which is easily obtainable from anyone. We offer it as well in a bit larger variety of colors, and we offer it in these convenient smaller strands, which are simply just straight strands of 3mm plastic. It's the same plastic that you would buy normally, but normally it comes in large spools. The problem, though, is that 1 kilogram spool, which is the standard way that you buy 3D printed plastic, is enough material to doodle the height of the Empire State Building 3.5 times. So it's almost too much plastic, and you know, people want to play with different colors and have different options. So we're offering it in these straight strands, specifically just to allow people to switch colors more easily and to get a wider variety. But you can just as easily go and buy a spool of plastic from someone else and stick it in there. So.
Okay. And so we know the product is out there, and it obviously got a lot of attention, a lot of feedback. But I was wondering, from your perspective, what is the target market for this product? Is it for the general public? Is it for creators and doers back at home that want to do something? What's your vision on that?
So initially, we thought it was really more for the hobby market and the makers and those crafting types of people. But the Kickstarter proved us immensely wrong on some level, and that it went much more wide than that. We found out that a lot more people were interested in it than we'd ever initially conceived. We not only have the makers and the hobbyists, but a huge contingency on the art community, as well as industries that we never would have conceived of before. We have a large interest from the architectural companies that want to take their pre-existing models and kind of just doodle on top of them to make corrections and try to convey ideas more clearly. We have a lot of interest from the educational markets who want to use it for teaching geometry and teaching math. We have a lot of interest from the visually impaired community as well. There's currently no convenient way of drawing a raised line on top of a piece of paper, and the 3Doodler solves this need quite well. As well as for younger kids who teachers want to be able to just draw a shape immediately in the air or in their hand so that they can hand a cube to a kid and say, this is a cube, and then, you know, the kid can get object recognition and feel it out, which are things that we would have never have thought of initially. And the Kickstarter really opened up a lot of possibilities that weren't there initially. We also have a lot of interest from designers who want to do, you know, interior decorators who want to be able to write on the wall and to make objects just right away. So it's really some fascinating people trying to do some really cool stuff with it.
Very interesting. And speaking of Kickstarter, we have a question from Elaine. Elaine, let us know if you want to ask the question yourself, if you have a microphone. But
No mic. Okay. So I see the
Yeah,
question.
it looks like Elaine has no mic. So it's about Kickstarter. How did you find the Kickstarter program and the process? What were the pros and cons of starting a campaign to start the 3Doodle?
So, I mean, we spent 3 months just planning out our Kickstarter campaign. And because of that, I feel like we were a lot better prepared than a lot of Kickstarters who tend to spend less time in the prep phase. But we were quite happy in general with the Kickstarter process. Things that we initially thought were very restrictive and that we didn't like actually ended up much to our benefit in the end. So, for example, Kickstarter doesn't allow you to sell multiples of items anymore. And at first, we were like, well, that's not very fair. We wanted to do that. But it turned out much to our benefit because of the sheer volume. It's a lot easier to do that. And as a result, we found that their restrictions helped us a lot in the end. Overall, I'd say that the Kickstarter platform is a very interesting one that offers a lot of benefits. Some of the downsides are obviously not everyone quite gets it right off the bat. There's some education that has to happen. A large contingency of our Kickstarters were actually first-time backers. So there was some education that had to go on in the process of explaining to them what it meant and that they weren't getting the product immediately, but they were backing an idea and that we would then take that idea and bring it out and give them that idea and in the timeline specified. So yeah, I think generally the education of the consumer was the downside. The upside was obviously we reached a very large audience very easily, and then we helped to create a community as well. You know, it was really Dan Cohen, who's one of our co-founders, is really the heart and soul to the Kickstarter process for us, and having someone dedicated to organizing that was exceedingly helpful. Kickstarter themselves was also very helpful. You know, they responded to every email. They offered advice continuously throughout the process, and their advice was very welcomed. So yeah, so okay. There are always ups and downsides, but overall I would say it was a very pleasant experience for us.
Okay. So you mentioned some, but I would like to go back to that and maybe let you list some of what you think would be your main advantages or the things you did very well that contributed to the success of the campaign. You mentioned the preparation was key. What else?
Really, preparation. Prepare. You know, we spent a month courting press before the Kickstarter, and we reached out to a large number of press, expecting, you know, we reached out to about 15 people that we specifically targeted because we knew they had interest in the 3D printing market and they'd written stories in the past. And we expected to maybe get 4 of them, but it quickly snowballed and they all were very excited, but it wasn't necessarily a lock until the actual launch happened, and the response rate was so much that I feel like all those people that we had pre-prepared jumped in and decided to write those stories at the end of the day. You know, writing a press release is very helpful. Organizing and having someone dedicated to just responding. We believe very much in customer service and customer support, and we answered every single email that came through on the Kickstarter system. And we tried to respond as much as possible on the walls. And I think all that is very helpful to help get people excited and to demonstrate that you, as a Kickstarter, are very much in the process and aware of what's going on.
And since you created a community on Kickstarter thanks to this project, I believe, I assume that some of the people would respond to others' questions directly on the.
That was one of the most exciting points. Was at some point when we got to basically stop responding to the posts because other people started answering other people's questions. So yeah, I mean, we were willing to make a loss on our Kickstarter, which is why our target goal was so low, and that 30K would have not have paid for all the pens, but we were very much dedicated to this project and to this concept. And we were looking for a little help to like get us through the process, and it ended up exploding, and the community has just been amazing, and their responsiveness, and there's a small percentage of the community that knows a lot about 3D printing and is able to answer a lot of questions that a lot of the rest of the community just doesn't know, since there aren't that many 3D printers actually out on the market to date. So it was helpful to have those people answering other people's questions. And it's also amazing to see some of the ideas that people were coming up with in those forums during the Kickstarter and even after the Kickstarter that have inspired us to make new changes and make alterations to the finalized product as a result. So it's kind of like crowdsource product development, if you will.
Cool. So now, still on the funding and still on the way you found to fund this project, because you could obviously go to investors. What do you think are the biggest differences between getting the project funded on Kickstarter like you did, or going to an investor? I mean, you have to keep the backers up to date, but then in the other side, you would have to keep the investors up to date.
Yeah.
So what are the differences, and eventually, if you did had this in mind to go to an investor, why did you end up doing the other thing, going with Kickstarter and crowdfunding?
So I mean, we really did want to build a community out of this, and we think that we thought it would be stronger to build a community to start with, and to get this crowdsourced thing, because I'd rather be responsible to 26,000 people or 25,000 people that really want this product than to one major investment company who then gets into all the details and tries to tell us what to do. I've launched around 15 products over my lifetime to date. So I actually have quite enough experience in manufacturing and production and actually putting product on store shelves and selling it. And you end up chasing money when you go to a VC type of situation where you're constantly looking to get more funding, and you have to justify the funding that you got the first time. And I find it a lot easier with the Kickstarter community because they're focused on the product and what they want, and then that allows us to just focus on the product and delivering what they want, instead of trying to look at the bottom line at the end of the day. Like, I'm much more driven on product and on making people happy than necessarily creating the most profitable corporation possible.
And speaking of products, which kind of products do you think might be most successful on Kickstarter? Obviously, you are talking, I mean, the 3 Doodler is a consumer product. Do you think that it can be the same for other types of products that are maybe harder to understand as a concept?
I think it's very difficult. You have to be very articulate in your video, and it has to be very clear. And you have to be able to grab people's attention within the first 30 seconds. A lot of people will start a video and then be like, me, and click away because it just didn't grab them in that first 30 seconds there. And it's difficult to say what's going to be successful on Kickstarter and what's not going to be successful on Kickstarter. I think it has to be unique. It has to be done well. I believe that software is one of the easier things to do on Kickstarter. The video game industry on Kickstarter is much stronger and raises more funding than the electronics or the consumer products side of Kickstarter, as well as like movies are very successful. The Veronica Mars is very successful. I mean, those had built-in fan bases, which helped a lot. Whereas I think we got lucky in timing. There has been a lot of interest in 3D printing. There have been a lot of 3D printers on Kickstarter that were successful projects. But once again, the cost was a big barrier for a lot of people. Those were $1,000 printers, whereas ours was a $99 or $75 or even $50 item. I think it made it a lot more easy for people to think that this was a possible idea. I mean, you really want to emphasize to people that you're capable of doing something, but the real key is to have an exciting product and a brand new idea or a new design or a new thing. So, I've seen a lot of good products on Kickstarter that failed because they weren't presented properly. And I think that's really the key, is you have to be able to present your idea well.
Okay. And so you'll be talking about your 3D printing product at LeWeb on stage, and I was wondering if you can now move to the bigger picture. And in terms of 3D printers, I mean, the 3D Doodler is obviously easier to access product, easier to use product, but we do have the normal 3D printing machines out there. And what I'm wondering is, do you think those are consumer products? Those are products that eventually the consumer market will adopt and use moving forward? Or do you think that solutions like yours will be the ones that will get adoption rather than the 3D printers that we now have out there?
Well, I really see the 3D Doodler as a companion piece to 3D printers. I mean, 3D printers in general going forward, the real barrier to date is software. Not only you have to be able to learn how to make 3D objects. Otherwise, you're limited to the 3D objects that are available on the internet now. And there is quite a number that are freely available, and you can go and download and have some fun printing them out. But the real advantage of 3D printers is being able to customize things. And I think the next big barrier for the 3D printing industry is to somehow create a simpler version of software that the average consumer can use. And until that happens, it's not accessible enough. Even if the price point comes down to $250 or $100 for a 3D printer, until the average person can somehow manipulate something on a screen and create a physical object, it won't be accessible for the common man or the common consumer. I very much think that there is a future for 3D printing in the consumer market, but I personally think that it's 5 to 10 years off. Right now, it is the perfect tool for people that are, running through prototypes or trying to make iterations or have ideas and want to try them out. But it's not a great tool for someone who wants to just print out a replacement button or a knob for their stove, because you have to go and get out your caliper and measure the pre-existing one and then make it in 3 dimensions, and that's really the limiting factor right now. So,
okay, so Elaine has another question, and actually that's an interesting one, because it's, where do you see 3D printing going? And that's in line with what we've been talking about, and the question is, do you think that it will get to a point where we will all be creators? Or, because I for instance don't see my mother or
right
starting and just
I could imagine
designing something, right?
Yeah, so, I could imagine in 20 years that Walmart is almost like a photo booth, if you will. You go in and you have a digital catalog and you flip through it and you make your selections, and then they say come back in 30 minutes, and then you come back and you have all your dishware that's been printed out. And you could take your old dishware and then shove it into a machine which would crunch it up and recycle it and make it into new filament. I could see something like that in the distant future. I think that's going to happen more quickly than everybody becoming a maker, just because of that software barrier. Unless someone comes up, that's, they say, the killer app that allows you to do that, it's still going to be limited, I think, to larger 3D printing industrial machines for daily use. Although, NASA's sponsoring the food printer, so who knows? Maybe we'll have chef 3D printers that will print you pizzas and print muffins and stuff like that. So that might be easier for people to do, since you can more easily bake. So.
and do you think that I believe 3D Doodler is manufactured in China, just like a lot of toys and products in the world. Can you see this transition to maybe having 3D printers at Walmart that basically can print everything for consumers? Do you think that it could switch manufacturing back to developed countries such as Europe or in the United States, or do you still see lots of the production in China and not changing?
there's still a lot of problems in that the carbon footprint of a 3D printer is still quite large. It takes quite a lot of energy to use a 3D printer. And it's not necessarily the most efficient method of manufacturing in large quantities. You'd need hundreds of or thousands of 3D printers to make that, and then supply chain issues and whatnot. I do hope in the future that this is where we're heading. I think a lot of large companies are trying to work towards this vision. And I can see it, but once again, I don't know how quickly it's going to happen or when it's going to happen. It really is an economy of scale issue and an efficiency. The amount of power required to 3D print something as opposed to injection mold it is vastly different. And our actual, we try very hard to use and source as much as from the United States and other countries. Our plastic is coming from the U.S. and from the United Kingdom. So we're very much working towards those goals. But we're very comfortable. We're a small company, so that's why we chose that. I've worked a lot in Asia in the past. I speak Mandarin. I've worked with a lot of these factories. I know these people. So these are choices that were made out of what we understood and what we knew we could do in order to produce it within the timeline and at the cost that we were looking to produce it at. But in the future, yeah, I can see it coming along. Once again, it's like 10, 20 years away, so it's hard to say when it would actually come away. Although Shapeways is moving a lot in that direction. They have vast arrays of machines that can print out things, but it's really for one-offs right now. So, I want one or two of something is the reason you 3D print it. The minute you get to thousands or hundreds of thousands, you're in a different scenario where it just right now it's not feasible or economical to just 3D print 10,000 of something.
Okay, so now trying to wrap up this hangout, there's one last question, which is about the future. Where do you think people will be able to buy it? What do you think is going to be the future for the 3Doodler product when it's out there in the market, produced and delivered to the consumer? What are going to be the next steps?
So I can't go in too much onto what the next steps are, but we do have quite a lot planned out. We have the next couple of years specifically planned. We have variations on the 3Doodler that we hope to bring out. We will be bringing it to the consumer market, so you will be able to buy it in stores starting in 2014. After, of course, we've delivered all of our all the 3Doodlers to the backers that have come up to date and to the people that have continued to pre-order on our website. After that, we will then be shooting for retailers as well as online sales of the 3Doodler, so that anyone can go and pick it up at a store, as well as refills of plastic and whatnot. You can pick those up at stores. So yeah, but we have quite a lot of exciting stuff planned out. There's quite a number of accessories and different things that we want to try. We tried very hard to make the Kickstarter edition very hackable and accessible to people. There's a mounting bracket on it, for example, as well as a plug-in so that you can plug it into the computer. And if you want, you can hook it up to a CNC machine if you are so inclined and make a 3D printer out of your 3Doodler. So we're definitely looking at all sorts of different possibilities and where we want to take it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Jennifer, you're joining us not so long ago. Do you have any questions that you'd like to ask Maxwell before we wrap up the Hangout? You can either write on the chat or speak. It's okay if you do have a question, of course.
Let's see. Hey, sorry for joining so late, but I just saw the post on the LeWeb Twitter post, and I just went and looked at the Kickstarter, and I can't believe that I missed all the hubbub about this because I immediately shared it with all of my friends, and we're really excited about that. So you're saying that we could go to the store in about 2014, and that's kind of what I was looking for when it was going to be available to the general public.
Well, you can go online right now and pre-order it on our website, and then you'll get it before it hits the stores. So
perfect.
That would be, that's the preferable method. Otherwise, yeah, it will be in stores starting in 2014. It will be in, consumer retail shops. We're working out exactly who right now, who we want to partner with and whatnot. But it is our intent to have it in retail stores for all to easily access it. So, and of course, we'll keep supporting on our website. So you can buy plastic on our website, and you'll be able to buy, PLA or ABS, which is the pen works with both. So yeah.
Okay. So unless there's a last-minute question, I think we're gonna wrap up this hangout. I want to thank Elaine very much for your questions and your participation, as well as Jennifer for joining us. So again, Maxwell is going to be at LeWeb on day 1 on the main stage. You can see him live. Don't forget to keep tracking our Twitter, our Facebook, and our Google Plus for other hangouts and for news about LeWeb. You can go to www.leweb.co if you want more information. And of course, we're gonna choose a winner for the questions, which is easier in this hangout. And then on the 5th and 6th of June. Okay, guys, thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you.